will be very successful. Networking is the process of building and maintaining a network of contacts, and successful networking needs to be ongoing. However, it also takes effort to get to know new people and to keep up with existing contacts. Um, we need to understand that more we build and maintain the relationship, our networking gets even more better. We have Mr. Tim B. Green, a successful coach, inventor, and a product developer. He has spent his life learning, experiencing, and inventing. His interests are very eclectic because he believes that the more you learn, the more interesting things you discover. Tim is also involved in teaching and coaching people about how to succeed at whatever they want to achieve through one-on-one videos, articles, and posts on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook too. We will be having the interacting session with Tim regarding the importance of team building and networking. If you have any queries, you can type your queries in the comment section and the queries can be addressed. Now, without any further delay, I'd like to welcome Tim in our session today. Welcome, Tim.
Welcome, thank you. I feel welcome to the event. I wasn't sure exactly how we were going to do this regarding the team building part. I think you covered it great. I think we should do almost exclusively Q&A. I just want to make some comments, just a short bit about both team building and networking. So is that cool with you? That works?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sure, okay. Okay, so I just want to say regarding about team building, I think one of the most fundamental things, and this is missed even in very large companies and very and less progressive companies, and that is there should be what they call a culture of social safety. That is certainly as a team to work in their most effective way is to make certain that it is safe to disagree appropriately. Now, a great, brilliant thinker on this subject would be Ray Dalio in his book Principles. He talks about depersonalizing criticism, because they don't think of it as criticism, but rather accurate and inaccurate information. So one really critical part of team building is to make sure that the team is also in a place where you can say, I'm sorry, but that's not accurate, or that's good, but I see this problem. That really will make a team come together in a way that is otherwise not possible. So please think about that as an important part, to have social safety where you can disagree and object, but you do it respectfully and professionally when you are working in a team, because that will give you superior results. I'll make a quick comment on networking, and then as far as I'm concerned, it can all be Q&A. So actually, I'm really only working on networking for the first time seriously in my life, pretty much since COVID started. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. Because I've got a different name.
My name is Shreya.
Shreya, thank you, Shreya. The name under you is different. That's why I'm confused. Okay, so Shreya was dead on about networking and the value it has. That's the one thing that I have not been doing until recently. And I can tell you right now, one of the most fundamental keys to networking is simply put, help first. Help first, help often, and never expect anything in return. It will come back. But if you expect it, most people you help will feel that. Most of the help you can give is usually knowledge, and you already have that. It costs you nothing to give it away. You're losing nothing. So if you really want to be a good networker or a powerful networker, reach out to people and help first, and then make it your responsibility to stay connected with them, so that when you do need something long down the road, you'll be the person who's already helped them. So that's all I got to say about that. For the short, I'm happy to answer questions about either of these things or other things in general, depending on where the discussion actually goes. So please, anybody with questions, feel free to chime in and ask questions.
I think first of all, let's divide this session into two sections. That would be team building, and it would be networking on the other side. So
Right.
to begin with team building, first of all, let's start with the team building. Like what actually is team building, and how is it important to the organization and in the personal level too?
Right. Well, something that people always seem to forget about team building and just about an organization is an organization. It was actually my eldest sister who suggested this to me. She said, remember that in any organization, you're still dealing with individuals. And that isn't to put the individual at the center of a team, but quite the opposite, just to recognize that any team of any size, any organization is a collection of individuals. So you also have to deal with them one-to-one and their confidences and ego and insecurity or whatever it is. They're real people. A powerful thing you can do to really leverage that and develop good team building is to develop good interpersonal skills in general. And that's except for the most gifted, I think a lifelong pursuit. One really powerful thing that a lot of teams do to be cohesive, to stick together as a group and to work as a group is when you're speaking to them about things that are individual and important to them, you can use you and your. Make sure to allow them to have full credit for what they bring to the group, your talent, not the marketing you took, but your talent, so that they own that. But conversely, when you're looking at problem solving, make sure to talk about we, us, and our. That language alone in English makes a significant difference. And there are leading CEOs and thinkers who actually use that pronoun test, that when they say, what can you do for our company? If you go, I will, me, my, you probably will not be hired. So that's a trick about something you can do to really team build is be conscious of your language and think of it as we are a team working together to solve a problem or improve a situation.
I think basically people tend to think that team and group are kind of similar thing. It's used interchangeably. So can you please put on your view regarding what is actually a team and what is actually a group?
I think group is just an informal, typically a more informal collection of people who are come together for common interest. I think you could use whatever term works best within your company culture, but team has more of the implication of working together to achieve a common goal versus group, which is just, a collection of people in the same place who have a common interest, but not necessarily working together. So I'd say team is probably more in alignment with what people would mean when they're talking about solving problems in groups of people working to solve a problem are probably more accurately described as a team because it gives that nuance of working together for a common cause rather than just being a group of like interest.
So getting on to the another question, according to you, Tim, what do you think that how important it is to build a team? Why team
Um,
building is so much important?
I think there's probably nothing more important. One of the things that companies have found over and over again in the many books I've read on the subject, not so much specifically of team building, but of an excellent book I would recommend for everybody. It's called Scaling Up Excellence. I can pass the information on so that if anybody wants a link, I'll get them hooked up with it. And one of the things they did is they looked at teams all around the world. And the number one thing was just developing a culture and a sense that everybody is in this together, but that everybody was accountable. And that's not just the team is accountable or the employee is accountable to the company, but the company is also accountable to the employee, that we're in this together to take care of each other. So that kind of team building, the companies that do that are by far the more successful. And please understand that if people don't feel like they're part of a team or a group, which is all too often the case, the politicking in companies, the cost to the, especially as that most people here or everybody here is probably an MBA, realize that the cost of replacing and retraining employees is enormous. If you can keep an employee, and you can do most of that by doing things that are virtually free, whereas retraining a new employee is always expensive. A book I would say that's exceptional in this area is called Drive by Daniel Pink, and he talks about 3 components that companies can provide that science has backed up as being effective ways other than money to keep people motivated and working at their best and wanting to stay. So it's, in a word, it's critical if you want to succeed.
Yes, definitely, Tim. According to you, what do you think is the role of a team leader in team building process? So, a team leader should be able to lead the team. So, what are the main qualities that a team leader should have that he can lead his entire team?
Okay, I would say a good team leader, my most direct experience with this is my 13 years teaching. And when I'm talking about teaching, that goes from young children right up to high-level corporate executives who report directly to the CEO. And in that role, I can say that if you do a command and control kind of a thing, I'm the boss, I'm the leader, do what I say, then at best, the results, as far as I'm concerned, will be inferior to going, look, I'm here to serve the greater goal of this team. Think of me more as a team member. I have some stuff, I can guide you on some stuff, but we're here to put our brains together, not glorify. So the team leader shouldn't be the center of the group. The team leader should be the facilitator of the group. And as much as they possibly can, park their ego at the door. It's like, hey, we're here to work together. And it actually, here's kind of a really good way to build the culture in a situation like that when you're the leader, especially if you're new and they don't know you yet, to either, as I tend to do sometimes, make a silly mistake because it will, and laugh at it, because then they'll realize you're a human too. You don't consider yourself above them. Doing that either honestly, because I sometimes spell things wrong on the board and realize it, or do it intentionally, not something that's critical that undermines your credibility, but just to express that I'm human too. I'm here to work with you. I can help you and guide you, but let's all bring our best A game. And when they feel that you're there to help and serve the greater good, rather than to just be an egocentric command and control leader, you're going to get better results, because now people feel safe to even say, I'm sorry, Tim, that doesn't make sense. And that might be especially useful because either maybe it doesn't make sense, or maybe they simply didn't understand, which means somebody else in the group also doesn't understand. And you always get better results when you actually give everybody the benefit of the doubt and the ability to add something. And they'll only do that if they feel safe.
Yes, so we got to know that I'm the boss attitude is a big no for in a team building. A team leader should always be a facilitator of the group, and a team leader should be friendly and be interactive in the team. So that's why. Another question I want to put is there can be various conflicts in the group. So what are the measures that we can take to manage the conflict in the team? Like there can be issues in their interest. So what can we do in such situations?
I would say in general, in groups, I would say, first of all, I would say prevention is better than cure. And what I mean by that is that the company itself will find that to be the exception rather than the rule if the company's culture has been built in such a way that the team is already established. That is, the whole company has a team spirit, as it were. So that's number one. I would say number two, if something comes up, it should be noted and confronted professionally, calmly, and impersonally as soon as possible. Now, here's another exceptional book. This isn't specifically about team building. It's actually about teaching, but it's by someone who I would say is a genius in the field of teaching. And his name is Doug Lemoff. He did a book called Teach Like a Champion 2.0. And the books that I'm throwing out here are books that I consider exceptional in their topic, in their authority in these areas, or I wouldn't mention them. And he talks about that even with kids, because I'll be honest with you, this is one of my favorite quotes. The only difference basically between kids and adults is adults, people, here it is, people never really grow up. They just learn how to act in public. And anybody in their private life can attest to this. I'm 53 years old, but I'm the baby of my family. As such, I will never be considered a grown-up, no matter how old I am, because I'm still always the baby. So people still have emotional outbursts or whatever, have things happen that are less than professional, or just have a professional disagreement. But number one, soon as that happens, as opposed to pretending it's not there, I would say bring full attention. Is okay, everybody, we have this thing happening. What can we do about it? Does anybody have any ideas? And another good thing you can do is how you do it. This is from a book that unfortunately I don't recall the name of, but an exceptional thing that I thought was so good I put it on my phone, and it reminds me of this every day at this point. And that is, I like what you said about X, or you point out one positive thing. This is a language structure, but I like what you said about how we can produce the product more efficiently, but how are we going to control the costs? Or I like what you said about this. How should we keep the costs? How should we keep this cost effective? So you say something positive, and then you ask them for their advice or their suggestion or their idea about, which is in fact what you're actually doing is you're pointing out there's a problem with their idea or a concern with their idea, but you first do positive statement and then ask them a question or identify a technical problem. And this is something that Ray Dalio just talked about recently on LinkedIn, is the difference between, besides dealing with conflict when it's small, because if you don't deal with it, it will grow. So ignoring it is not an effective strategy. And what he said is, he talked about depersonalizing it. And he talked about the difference between, instead of saying, you're wrong, I'm right, and that, which is guaranteed to escalate it, talk about it in terms of accurate and inaccurate. It's like, I'm not sure that those numbers for the deliveries are accurate. I'm not sure that that delivery system will be accurate. There's some logistical problems with that maybe, right? So now we're talking about the problem or the logistics or the challenge, not you're stupid or I'm right or you're wrong or I'm smart and you're dumb. You make it depersonalized. You talk about the problem or the concern you see with something that comes up, the whatever the conflict is, but then say, so how can we maybe find a better way to do this, or how can we address those concerns? And notice how I changed it from this problem to we and solution. So you actually can recruit if it's two people or two sides, you can actually recruit your opponent into finding a solution. It's like, I think this and you think this. And in this case, they're mutually exclusive. We can't do both. How can we find a solution which will address all of our concerns and maybe be better than either one? So that would be my suggestions on that.
So summing up regarding the conflict management, that the conflict should not be ignored. it should be noted and it should be confronted professionally as soon as possible. And while if there is any conflict, then we should not directly taunt the person and say that you are wrong and you should not have done that. We need to go to the person and say something positive regarding say something positive, and again correct him and ask the idea regarding the problem and why did the problem arise in a positive way. That also impacts the confidence of the person. So is that right, Tim?
That gives a pretty good summary. It's important to understand that what we're talking about here is, unless it's specifically personal, which it almost never is, at least in terms of the way they're presenting it, we separate the problem from the individual. We depersonalize it, right? That's a critical part of it. Is like, well, that's not going to work. Well, if somebody says that, that's a fairly aggressive tone. You says, oh, okay, so there, you see a problem with the delivery issue. Well, how do you think we should fix that? So in other words, right now, you're talking about fixing a delivery issue, not you don't know what you're talking about. So depersonalize and then work on a solution together. I can't hear you. You're muted. There you go.
Yeah. Participants present here and those who are watching us on Facebook Live, you can have your question to Tim. If you have any questions, we will get the questions and your queries addressed. So Tim, what do you think is the most essential feature that is needed in a team? Like communication is most important, like interpersonal skills. So what are the other skills that are needed, that is very essential, and that should be included in a team?
I think it's what I would call frames. Now, people call them frames of reference or perspectives or whatever else, but I think that if it's not already included in the DNA of the company by and large, that when you get together with a team, together, mutual buy-in, saying, okay, here's what we're trying to do, get everybody to buy in and help sort of set the expectations and the values and the goals of the team is really good. So anything where everybody is asked to contribute really helps because they buy in, but also just framing it as we're here to work together to solve this problem as being the priority, and really nothing else is. It's like we're all here to help each other out rather than some kind of competitive thing. So, and especially that really helps with going back to the conflict manager, say, okay, so that's a good point. It's a valid point. So we are here to help each other out. So let's together solve this. So again, it's just the idea that we're here to collectively help each other solve a problem or improve a process, meet a challenge, whatever it is.
So according to you, there should not be any competition within a team that may hamper the goal that they are trying to achieve, right?
Right. Well, essentially set the frame at the beginning. If it isn't already, as I said, part of the company DNA, we are here to help each other do this, so that anytime if that comes up, it's like, okay, look, we're not here to say who's smarter or whatever. We're here to work together with each other's strengths to solve the problem. So just to set the expectation and define the purpose of the group. So that's the frame which everybody will then approach. It's called anchoring, right? If you set a high price, if you set a high bid, then people will overestimate any other number you give them. And that's also true in this way. If you set an expectation, then everybody goes, oh, our purpose is to work together as a team to solve this problem, not try to find out who the smartest person in the room is. That's not our purpose. So by clearly defining the purpose in the frame, the purpose of being there, that's the main thing, I think, because then everybody knows that going in and everybody will think in the direction we've established. Because it's especially if the purposes for the team and the reason we're here is defined by everybody. It's like, okay, what do you think we're here for? We know we're going to do this, but what are some of the important things we think? So if you do that at the beginning, you know, it's pretty hard for somebody to say, I wasn't involved in choosing these, when in fact they were. Everybody has a tendency to buy in a lot more and be more receptive to thinking and working as a team in that case. So establishing the frame of why you're there and what the purpose is. Mutually establishing.
Till now, we discussed about the importance of the team building and how we need to address how do team leaders need to address the problems of the team. So, team there are many problems. There may be many problems in team failure. So, in what condition and what situation does a team fail?
Without something specific, I would say a failure. I would say it is more of a failure for them not to strive. But if we're talking about, you know, like, what is it, KPIs? Okay, so in a case like that, when you're talking about key productivity, I'm sorry, I can't remember what
Key performance, key performance
indicators,
yes.
right.
Right.
So I suppose you could say failure is if they haven't reached their KPIs, or reach their goals. But I have my own very strong views about goals and the way they're set, and how many goal setting strategies, even used in business, have some very fundamental flaws in them. But overall, I would say, yes, you can fail by definition of not reaching predefined specific objective targets. Now, that's a critical thing there too, is if you can't measure it, if a random person from outside cannot walk in, if your KPIs are not objective, then they're useless. It was like, make better customer relations. It's like, well, what does that look like? Unless you have objective measures, you can't measure it at all, because then people's opinions become integrated into that and you haven't measured anything. But you can fail to reach measures. But I would say true failure, obviously you want to reach those goals, but true failure is if you look at it and just go, oh, we failed, we suck. Versus, okay, the approach we took wasn't effective. Now, how can we make that more effective going forward? So we all want to reach the KPIs and the end goals as well as we can. But if we can do the whole Kaizen process, as the Japanese call it, anything that was a problem or wasn't effective the first time should never be, or should always be, more effective the second time. So I think failure is failure to learn and make the process better, and taking it too seriously when we don't know what we don't know. So forgiving yourself as a team and as an individual when legitimate mistakes are made or legitimate things are not reached, and going, oh, well, that didn't work, how can we fix that? Rather than beating yourself up, which is utterly useless and reduces your cognitive ability and self-esteem and everything else. That it has no value to do that, has no value. Just go, oh, well, that didn't work, let's try something else.
Yeah, Tim. Another question I have in the beginning when the team is just formed, the team members are very excited and they are very excited to join a team and do the work. But as time passes, how can we maintain the team spirit in the long run?
Well, again, I'm going to refer specifically to high-level classes, especially one in particular where I taught executives. It should be a little bit friendly and a little bit playful. You're still working hard, you're still being professional, but having that sort of little tidbits of personal reference. And I used to do it right at the beginning of classes, where it'd just be a short, what did you do? Not spending a lot of time on it, but having some things and having some sort of knowing that little bit about each other, having some inside jokes. Like if somebody else walked in the classroom, you could say something and everybody would laugh, because you know that little thing that you talked about, or it's like, oh, I saw this kid and he did this thing and it was so cute, or I saw this dog and it was so cute, it was wearing Mickey Mouse ears. Just sort of innocent, friendly, playful things, which makes it feel more like a real family or team. And especially when even small victories are had, ideally within the team and within your goals, but even without, it's like, yay, I won a cookie. I don't care what it is. Small victories and the positive energy that brings to the team. It could be like at the beginning, so what great has happened to you today? Or even gratitude, just small things like that, to inject it on an ongoing basis over just a little bit of time, and giving people that spike of dopamine to have. Is like, when I'm with this team, sometimes we actually have some happy times, and then, a high five or something like that, a crazy little happy dance when they reach a goal. There's whole companies that work like that. I think it's Zappos that has all these crazy little, 1-minute parties, or uses foghorns in that. And that's just fun. And for most people, just that tiny little bit of fun and getting back to work, and then celebrating those micro successes together. If everybody stands up like this, if we're in a circle and everybody stands up and does this, there you go. We've all done a high five together. And then you sit down.
So team, we are also taking the question from our chat box here in Zoom.
Excellent.
We have a question from the chat room that regarding conflict management, how can we deal with the conflict with the superior managers if such situation arises, especially in the case when the superior managers tend to be very autocratic, stubborn, and regarding their decision?
That's a tough situation to be in. And I think that comes back mostly to company culture. And that is, if you want a true team, you have to have sort of a more flat hierarchy within the team. Now, obviously, by different companies, that may be impossible. You may have no way around that. And essentially, that the person who is the higher level manager doing that is the cause. And I think the team leader, if he can't resolve it sort of immediately and in class, saying, hey, we're all here to work together, let's forget about our ranks and just get on with this. And if somebody is being particularly autocratic, and let's face it, a lot of higher level managers have, or people, everybody has a big ego. It's just somebody who has ego and authority who can't put it aside for the greater good is kind of causing the problem. I would say that it might be worth, and again, this depends on the team. Maybe there's no safety in the company, in which case it may be irresolvable. But if it can't be resolved within the meeting and by the skilled team leader, or by the team in general, saying, hey, look, this is kind of a problem, what can we do about this? If that doesn't work, or if the higher up person is so autocratic, it may be worth going to an outside higher authority saying this is a problem. Because, and again, it all depends on the company culture. Would that work? In some companies, you would just have to sit there and smile and nod. Those are the kind of companies that have a tendency to fail much more than the companies who go, okay, you might be 2 levels above him, but in this room, you're all equal. And if somebody doesn't have the authority to do that, if you can't resolve it, honestly, I'd say start looking for another job. But unfortunately, many companies in the world fit into that backward autocratic system. But those would be my suggestions. If I had more specific information, maybe I can help more, but that's a tough situation.
Next question I'm taking from the comment box. We can see that, can you provide some of the tips that how can we improve our teamwork skills?
Sure. I think I've already mentioned some of it. And honestly, this might just sound silly and trivial, but it isn't. If you go in, it's very related, like networking. It was like, okay, how can I help you? How can we help each other? And this can go beyond beyond the scope of the team's goal itself. One of the things you can do is absolutely just be friendly. If on the way into the team that if you're not doing it all the time, offer to, if you notice something, that small thing that you could do to help someone, is like, hey, I noticed that this was a challenge. I know of a great app. Let me send you a link. Just small personal things, especially small personal things that you don't have to do, that don't really cost you anything, but have value for them. So if everybody comes in with that bring value, that really helps, because it's pretty hard to not feel like a team when everybody's there to help each other. Come in with a positive attitude, and no matter what anybody happens to say, as far as possible, sort of being warm and friendly and keeping it on the problem solving basis. And if you're stuck, obviously, if you can't do it on the fly, I'm pretty good at that. But if you can't do it, if you can't think of something to do on the fly, I would take a note of it. I would ask other people. Always borrow the intelligence of other people. If you know somebody who's a social genius, who's always the center of attention at a party or whatever, and you get stuck, you could either go to the internet, or you could go, especially to friends or other colleagues within that group, and say, hey, what do you think I would have done in this case? They will love you for asking for advice, because that pets everybody's ego. But yes, if you can't solve it yourself, find someone who you think can and ask their advice, or look online. There's somebody there who's always happy to help.
So another question I want to ask you is, so team, how can we deal in how can you deal with a messed up team? I mean, like, as a leader, you know that there is some problem going on in your team, but you don't know, you don't actually know where exactly is the problem. So in this case, what can we do? As many problems arises from a team. So what can we do in such situations?
So what we're talking about is, by and large, almost without exception, that means something was done wrong and allowed to go on for a long time. We talked earlier about addressing problems early. The situation you're talking about, in most cases, will never arrive if that's done correctly early on. But in this case, it would be like, okay, everybody stop. Look, we all know there's a lot of problems going on here. Let's do some talking about it. And it will probably, if it's like what you're talking about, at that point, get personal, and people will have to talk about their feelings. That's not terrible. This is just, I don't know if you know what the word triage means, but it means like after a battle or something, you got to choose. Some people are so injured that you're just going to have to let them die to save somebody else. So what you're talking about is actually triage. It should have never went this far, but certainly if it gets there, someone in the group, ideally the team leader, has to go, look, this team just isn't functioning. We have to get this resolved before we can move forward. We're wasting time here. People have to stay calm. They're going to have to identify the fact that everybody's going to have to own the fact that, is this working? Does anybody think this is working? But like I said, in a calm and professional manner, and then resolve it, or it's just going to keep getting worse. So again, it's the same thing, but you're just going to have to go, you got to address the elephant in the room at that point. And that's a bad position to be in, because you're better to prevent it than to have to fix it. It's like, when you have a pinhole, that's fine. But when it's a basketball size hole in your chest, it's kind of too late when you could have fixed it when it was a pinhole.
Thank you, Tim. Now, I request the participants, if they have any question, you can directly unmute yourself and ask the question if you have. Otherwise, we will be moving forward to our second part of our session, which is networking.
Okay, Shreya, I'm actually having to change my earbuds, so I'm going to be out of audio contact for a moment.
Yeah.
Please go ahead and field questions, and And while, if I miss any, you can relay them to me.
Yeah, sure, Tim.
It's a little bit of a goofy thing because I have two identical sets, so they talk to each other and stuff.
Yes, sure.
Okay. They should be connecting in just a moment. So,
Oh, I think.
yeah, I can't hear you. Just give me a moment. Can you speak again? I'm back. I can hear you now. I can
So
take
I
questions
guess,
now.
yeah, I guess we don't have any questions as you explained so well about the team building, how to resolve the conflicts, and other related to the team building. So let's move on. Let's move on towards our second session, which is networking.
Shreya, before we do, I want to ask you a question here. First of all,
Yes.
a thing that I missed, which is critical because I do this all the time when I teach different skills, is all of you listening, you should strive to think about asking a meaningful WH question. I'm not saying, and don't do it to please the facilitator or to sound good to your boss. Ask a real question. So one of the other things that's really good and will make a team stick together really well is people who are willing to ask questions. I actually practice with my students these words: I don't know. And being in Japan, that is like deep cultural shame. But I do it because if you can admit I don't know and you're willing to ask questions, like, I'm sorry, I forget what KPI means. You know, I could pretend to know, but I just simply forgot. It's not too complicated. But asking questions is also a key part about building a team, because that shows everybody else that there is something you don't know that they maybe know and can help you with. So that really helps develop that team spirit too. Now networking, go ahead.
I like to ask one question, Tim. Like when we have a team like us, there is some kind of the work divided, but actually the work divided in between us, we don't know how to do the work, and we go through the lots of things, but we are about to the deadline and we are not able to do, and we get something we need to like report to the somebody, and when we report we get like how do you don't do that, and how we will respond to that question, like what should we how would cope that like you are not doing the work, because we do the work, we want to do the work because our limitation, we cannot do the work, and your supervisor or somebody told you why don't you do that, and at that time how would you
Right.
respond to the supervisor?
Okay. Without, in a very general sense, without more specific, the first thing that comes to my mind, and I know a lot of companies do this, they expect especially juniors to simply know how to do things. This reminds me just of communication in general. If you're the speaker, it's 100% your responsibility to make yourself understood. Conversely, as the listener, it's 100% your responsibility to understand. That is, if you don't understand, ask questions. This reminds me of that, in that if you've actually put in the legitimate work, and we're going to make that assumption that you were working earnestly, not being lazy, not being poorly set up, then my first thing I think is, have you been trained properly to do it? And again, this is a company culture thing, but if when you are assigned something, I would rather you prevent being in that position by going, I'm sorry, sir, madam, whatever the appropriate address is, how do I do this? And asking for a specific, actionable, concrete process to do that. I don't know if that helps, but if you get to that situation, then I would own the fact that you didn't achieve the goal. And then if you can talk about the reason why, and I'm not talking about excuses, is like, I wasn't sure how to, this part didn't work, this took a lot longer than expected. And maybe ask for help or further training. I know people are sort of nervous about doing that, but there is some cause for the fact that you didn't do it. And maybe it's just you're not that skilled at it. But as often as not, a lot of companies just don't properly train, and then they complain to their juniors for not doing it well. It's like, if they haven't trained you as the senior, I say that's the senior's fault. But as the student or junior, if you haven't done your work diligently, given the right information and coaching, then it's your fault. But you should take responsibility and ask how you can improve that, or ask for ways to be better at that. Say, I'm sorry, I didn't achieve those KPIs. How can I do X faster? Especially the thing you found that was the most challenging, which you can identify as the thing that made you not able to reach those goals. Does that make sense?
Yes, Tim, thank you.
You're welcome.
So can we move towards our second session, which is networking? If anyone has any question, you can go on. Okay, then let's move on towards our second part, which is networking. So basically, we know that network is net worth. So we need to network with many people, which increases the value of ourselves. So to begin with, I'd like to request Tim to provide brief introduction to about what actually networking is.
Sure. Networking is the easiest thing in the world for me because I'm very outgoing and hypersocial. However, I have completely neglected it until about the last 4 months. And so ironically, very recently, I just finished a book on it, and I sent you the link. So I'll mention the name of that book because it is excellent. I don't recommend books unless I think they really have real value to people. And that was How to Be a Power Connector. And it's Judy Robinette is the author, and it's excellent. But what I was actually happy to find is that networking is, in a sense, just being friendly and front loading on the help. If you approach everybody with, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. The basic intro, but then another fellow that I know, he would say, how may I make your day? So if you go up to them, and especially the other thing I would do besides basically having the frame that I am here to help you, even if I don't know you, and even if I never get anything in return. So help, don't expect anything in return, and find something to connect on that they're passionate about. Not necessarily related to the networking you're trying to do. Like I spoke with an author on a one-to-one recently, and we got onto the topic of music. I decided that was a good one because we were similar age, and our discussion made me think that we might have some common. It was like, so what's your favorite band? It might sound silly, but he'll remember that. And if I take note of that, so connecting with people to help inside and outside the area that you're target networking, and then making some kind of personal connection so you can have that inside joke I was talking about, right? Then when you email them for help after you've helped them 2 or 3 times already with trivial things, and mention, oh, how's your dog? How is Pookie? They will remember you, and they will have really positive feelings. So networking is, don't look for anything. Look to give, not to get. That would be my number one. And it'll just spread.
Once we understand that networking is simply about building relationships with people around us, it should be clear that we are networking all the time. Like every time you stop to the corridor to chat with a colleague or pick up a phone to speak to your contact, you are networking. Of course, there are times when you are networking more actively. For example, when you go to a professional event, you are almost certainly planning to spend a certain amount of time catching up with your old contacts and meeting new people. So, Tim, I'd like you to put on the light on when should we when should we network. I don't think it is a relevant question to ask that when should we network, but how can you provide us tips like how to network and how to network?
Sure. First of all, when, always, unless you're at home alone, not talking to anybody, like you said, you're already networking. So it's a matter of whether you're networking well or poorly. Um, so when should we network? Always. And how? Well, I found what is so far very, very effective is LinkedIn groups, especially Zoom calls, like group Zoom calls. And so far, I haven't found that it necessarily matters whether they're in your specific industry. And again, from some of the advice that Judy Robinette gives, and I totally agree, seek to network eclectically. So if you go to a generic networking event, a virtual networking, of course, is very popular right now. I would say go out there and get on some groups. You'll find some ones you like and return and bring value. So how? LinkedIn would be number one. And the reason I say that is because Gary Vee, quite an expert in the social media space, says that right now it gives you the best organic reach. So especially for everybody during COVID, I would say absolutely go find some stuff you're interested in within and also outside, right? I like power kiting. That's not really directly related to my work, doing power kiting and kite surfing. But I'm passionate about it. I also love hand drumming. So in addition to doing stuff that's directly related, do some things that are just purely about your passion. Like I said, online Zoom right now is huge for everybody. And something I discovered today actually was that LinkedIn now has a thing where there's lots of little live events by even like, you know, the top companies in the world, Microsoft, Google, Facebook. You can simply start following people, commenting on their content, things like that, not asking for anything, but just putting yourself on their radar. So you should always be networking. You should think about what kind of people you may want to eventually develop a relationship with that may not be accessible yet, but just even being in their orbits in one way or another. But mostly the groups, I found the groups are really so far very effective. Just be willing to be outgoing and help. And if they ask you about what something you need, it's okay to make a small ask, and you should, because they'll feel great for helping you.
So what do you think is the importance of networking? So where do you see the consequence of the networking that you have been doing for a long time?
Okay. As I said, it's mostly been since COVID started, about the last 4 months. So I'd say the consequence is I have been working on a lot of product development stuff for like 12 years, and none of it has made its way all the way to licensing. And in hindsight, the critical thing I'm quite certain I was missing was a lack of relationships, because I was quite literally, according to an expert who I now realize maybe has a 1% success rate. I would not call myself an expert if I had a 1% success rate. Is the consequence is anything you want to achieve, you cannot basically achieve yourself. And the consequence is it is probably one of the single most critical things you can do to advance not only your life in general, your relationships in general, but your career, is to network. You can't really afford not to do it in this connected world, and especially in this thank you economy where it's almost understood that you should be able to offer something before expecting anything in return. So the impact is life-changing. Start now. Start yesterday.
Uh, some people find the whole idea of networking at big events is too challenging. They struggle with the idea of meeting so many new people. And also, like, if you've been invited to a networking event, and there's going to be very food, wine, and a room full of people you don't know, for some people, they may suffer from real and disabling anxiety when presented with such kind of challenges. So what tips would you like to provide for people like them?
Okay. First of all, I'm going to qualify by that is absolutely not me. I don't need alcohol or anything else to speak to people. So, but I understand it. But really what it comes down to, and this is for starting, not for achieving excellence, is set a super low bar. Set a super low bar. Don't hang out with your friends and the people you already know. You know, ping them, say hello to them, but try to spend the rest of your event around other people who you don't know. Now that's a high bar in fact, but yeah, don't just hang around in one corner in a closed circle with your friends you already know, because then it's useless to be there. I would say, especially if you have really high social anxiety, on your first time, take the first person closest to you at any moment in time, right? So I don't care what it is. It's like, just make yourself hop this one small bar, and that is, okay, I will speak to one person, I will make eye contact and say hi. And if that's all you do, and for you that's a challenge, then that's an appropriate challenge. Because when you say hi, they're going to say hi back. That's how conversations start. It usually takes very little more than hello. Or another one, which is super simple and is definitely gets you on the right foot, is to, you know, you may compliment somebody's jewelry or tie. It may seem superficial, but it's better than nothing. And especially if you've, at the event, they spoke or something else, if you can compliment them, and genuinely so, if you don't believe it, don't do it. Compliment somebody on something that isn't about their appearance, but something about who they are. You know, I really believe in sustainable development, so I really loved your talk on that. I don't care what it is, something that is about the person's character, if you have the opportunity. But even saying, that's a really cool tie, where did you get that, is still not bad. Again, just do one thing, and that conversation will probably evolve mostly from itself. And if that exhausts you and freaks you out, now you can take a pause. And then the next day, or wait some time, breathe. I was in fact helping somebody with some social anxiety issues recently. And that was the thing I said, when you start to feel nervous, instead of fidgeting, just breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Nobody sees it. It's totally private. You know, it's fundamental, but it's also scientifically proven. It's not just, you know, the basis in Buddhism and everything else, but deep breathing is a core thing for calming yourself down. So deep breathe. Also, I would say plan to fail. And what I mean by that isn't just I'm going to fail, but plan to fail. That is, have a plan if you fail. So Charles Duhigg, in his book, Bigger, Better, Faster, or Smarter, Better, Faster, talks about having plans, if, when, then. If, when I stumble or I fail to say something and they walk away, I will say to myself, no problem, I'm just practicing. So literally have a plan in place. Like, you know, when the plane goes into the ocean, people aren't going, oh no, what am I going to do? You know, okay, the thing's going to drop and I put it on, but I put the oxygen on myself first before I help my kids, because if I pass out, my kids can't help themselves. They have a plan to fail, but fortunately, many of us never have to overcome it. So a low bar, something that you can do. And also, can't remember his first name, but the author's name is Clear, and Atomic Habits talks about that. That's if it's in a special challenge. But then the next thing I would say is raise the bar. The challenge should be commensurate with your skill. If you're a little bit outgoing, well, then you have to try to be a little more outgoing. Do something that's a challenging for you at whatever level you are. For me, that would be like standing on a table and saying, hey, everyone, how you doing? Okay, that might be a challenge for me, but no matter where you are, clear a bar that's very easy for you to do, like turn and say hi. And you can even stop there, but you probably won't need to. They will probably start the conversation. But then once you're good at saying hi and getting short conversations, then extend the length a little bit, or say hi to twice as many people, or one more person, or one person every 10 minutes. Just set a higher and higher bar, because a low bar will not give you excellence, but it will get you started.
So can we connect this networking skill with our own interpersonal skills too?
Of course, there's fundamentally no distinction between them, other than it's the difference between your socializing within a business context versus socializing in general. And in fact, at least for me, as I said, I'm hypersocial, but I would say I find it easier to network with people, because one of the things it does for you is it gives everybody at least one common topic. I wouldn't beat it to death, right? You're all at a networking event. So even it's like, how's your networking going? Do you like these things? Do you meet a lot of drunk idiots? And then you laugh about that. But Robert Cialdini, who's a famous author, also talks about one of the leading researchers in persuasion, talks about it. And really, probably the biggest thing you can get from him is people like them. So any commonality that you can achieve in social circles of any kind, and that includes networking. It's just when you're in a networking event, especially if it's industry specific, you have something in common. You're both there for the same purpose. You're both in the same industry. Stay positive. Maybe you could talk about one thing about, someone who did make a fool of themselves and say, I hope that guy's okay, or laugh at it because it was kind of funny. But mostly you just want to stay positive and ping on one thing that's common between you. But absolutely, the better you are at social skills. Actually, I want to mention a YouTube channel, and I'm not affiliated. It's just because this guy's really excellent, called Charisma on Command. And he gives exceptional advice about how to develop social skills in all sorts of contexts. So that's the other thing, seek out people who know about that. I know people who are social skills trainers, and most people, that's one of the challenges they forget to train themselves on. So absolutely, that's another thing you should pursue ongoingly. And I think it's easier in business context because you always have a topic to talk about.
It should already be clear that networking is part of our everyday's working life. We are constantly networking. However, there will also be people that you don't see every day, but who are part of your network, or people who you wish to meet. So how can we get to know them or stay in touch with them once you have met them, at least for once?
Okay. So you're talking about specifically people who you've met at least once? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Right. First of all, there's something called callback humor. So now this could either be created or happen spontaneously, and it's honestly better if it happens spontaneously. If something funny happens when you meet them, you should log that in your brain, and more than that, you should actually document that, because then you can bring it back. If, like me, who has a very selective memory and forgets a ton of stuff, especially people's names, which is terrible, terrible thing. You should always use people's names. If you have a shared experience, positive or funny, I would document that. And I would also say, from my own personal experience living on the other side of the ocean from friends and family, that just like the communication with who's speaking should take 100% responsibility as well as who's listening, I would say the same applies here. Don't assume they will stay in contact, because most people are flaky. You will stand out in a positive way if, I would say, probably you could say the next day, send them a short email or a line or whatever communication. It was name, it was great meeting you. Even if it's just let's stay in touch, or name, it was great meeting you. And then a reference to one thing that one shared experience, especially if it was funny or fun or positive. And that's it. And then maybe a week later, maybe depending on if they respond or not. And then maybe a month later or monthly. Now, if you don't get replies, I certainly wouldn't send anything more than 1 month at a time. But when you do, like the first one could just be, it was a pleasure meeting you. I hope to see you at the next conference or something like that. And that's it. The second and thereafter, always have a reason. And by a reason, I mean, that's where you can add value. Hey, I read this book, it's amazing. Hey, there's this article. Hey, my friend is coming to your town, your city. Do you know where there's a good hotel? And it's very interesting that normally we think of asking as being maybe a little pushy or negative, but in fact, there's the opposite effect. It's called the Benjamin Franklin effect, actually, that he identified a long time ago, that asking somebody for a small favor, especially a small favor which is not a lot of trouble for them, when we do somebody a favor, it triggers something called consistency. That is, we don't do favors for people we don't like. So if we ask somebody to do a favor and they grant it, they will align their feelings for us with having done the favor. It's like, well, I know I like them because I did them a favor. So interestingly enough, you can do small asks most of the time, give them anything of value, but it needs to be relevant. Otherwise it's just spam and pestering. And only if it's real. It's like, hey, I know somebody coming to Japan. Can you give them any advice about the best time of year to come? That's so easy for me to give a response to, that is such a small ask, and that causes people to like them. So if somebody said that, I'll tell all of you right now, come about now, or even early December, if you want to see the beautiful color of change of leaves. So ask for small favors, but mostly give value and do it once a month. And if they don't respond after a few months, you probably just want to prune them from your network, because you can't make people interact. But as the relationship develops, if you ping them the day after, I think is always good, just to say, hi, it was a pleasure to meet you. A week later, but if they keep responding, then maybe the frequency of once a week is more appropriate, especially if they keep responding in a positive way, right? And that becomes a closer and deeper relationship. But if they respond, but it takes them more than, say, a week to reply, then back it off and, send them something once a month for a few months, and then consider whether you want to even reply it. Because if they keep not responding, then it's like, well, it's not an interaction, and that's okay. If they don't want that interaction, don't take it personally. Just focus on the more fulfilling and active relationships that you are developing through those brief contacts and giving value.
So I'd like to add in this thing that even we say, let's stay in touch, and there's positive response from both of the side. We won't have anything to talk about in the future, like if we are trying to network with the senior and the top people, and we need to find a reason to talk to them. So what can we do in such situations?
Find a reason to talk to them.
Yeah, right. It's exactly.
You answered your own question. What I'm saying is the answer to your question is find a reason to talk to them. That is, whatever is, that's what I was talking about, being relevant and giving value. Literally what you said, you don't know what to talk to them about. Well, that's one of the things you can find out by interacting with them, but you already know something about them because you've met them once. And during that first interaction, you should learn at least one thing about them that gives you a reason to talk to them. And going forward, you know, you can say, you could even say, it's an old standby and it's kind of lame in one way, but just fine. It was like, I can't believe that typhoon. It almost, you know, it threw a lawn chair off of my balcony. Are you okay? You know, if you're in the same country, that's a relevant thing to say. Here in Japan, where typhoons happen all the time, a few days after the typhoon, all my students are all talking about, it's the small talk of the day. So a current event that's relevant, there's always something. And if you don't know what it is, if you're stuck, go online and figure it out, or ask somebody else, ask me, ask somebody else in your network. It's like, I met this guy, he's this way, and he's the CEO. What should I talk to him about? You know, if you're stuck, first of all, try, because that will improve your own brain, quite literally. That's how you achieve excellence. Try to do something that's hard for you. But if you can't, then seek outside resources, even if it's Google or another person, or, and this could be gold too, maybe you know another person who knows them. It's like, do you know anything about this, anything more about this guy? I just know this. You know, oh, well, it turns out that he's a Grateful Dead fan. It's like, oh, really? Wow, that's crazy, right? So that's also a good reason to share some, not too much, but a few personal things and something you're passionate about. Because if it's their passion, now you have something to talk about pretty much forever. Right? If somebody tells me they're interested in inventing, right? Not product development in general, but inventing, actually creating solutions for things. That's enough that I'll probably be friends with them forever, and we will always have something to talk about. It's not to say that it won't diverge into other things, and it should, but mainly, how do you figure out how to talk to them? By figuring out, by finding something to talk to them, or even saying, what are you passionate about? That's not a bad question. What do you care about? We have there's a word in Japanese, it's called ikigai, and it means the reason you wake up in the morning or your life's motivation. So I love to ask people when I first meet them, what's your ikigai here in Japan? Because they're shocked that I know it and amused. And here it's actually a deep question, but I just want to see what they're passionate about. So what are you passionate about? There's a good way. Just ask them what they care about.
Definitely, Tim, that we need to find the reason to talk to people. So regarding networking, if anyone has any queries, you may put on your confusion or queries.
Okay, I would like to put up a question. Hello, team.
Hello.
So basically, if networking is meeting new people and talking with them, then how is it different from communication skill? Are networking and communication skill the same?
I wouldn't say they're exactly the same. Communication skill, they're overlapped because networking is building relationships with a purpose or building connections that you then want to maintain. So I would say that's the main difference. Absolutely, social skill or communication skill underlies and supports it, but it's larger than that in that you're developing a network. And as Shreya says, you want to maintain that network. So I would say it's using your communication skill to make connections and then maintain those connections by giving value. And ultimately it's going to become a friendship. Even if it starts at all business, it'll ultimately become some kind of friendship, even if it's only in that context. So networking is adding communication skill plus keeping in touch and maintaining that relationship and expanding your connected network that you are communicating with on a somewhat regular basis, even if it's once a month.
Okay, so basically we can conclude that networking has some ulterior motives rather than just communicating.
Yeah, the alternative motive should be helping them.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm saying literally not asking anything in return. It will come, but if you think of it as an ulterior motive, that frame is kind of dangerous. It's like, I'm here to bring you value. And that's it. And if something comes back, that's awesome, but I really don't care. So the ulterior motive is to stay in contact so you can find ways to deliver value to them.
So anyone, you would like to add up some questions to Tim?
Okay, can I ask one more?
Yeah, sure.
Hello, team.
But
Am I audible?
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so as technology has developed different communication platforms such as Zoom, LinkedIn, people are being virtually connected these days. How is it different from people meeting in a physical way? Is it effective rather to meet people physically or through virtual network?
I think there's debate about this. Absolutely, there's certainly value in being face to face with people, but I would say actually the efficiency and reach of virtual communication is better. I think if you really want to develop the relationship further, you should, as much as possible, do it by video, because people then it's not the same as being face to face, but it is closer, and you can see people's, social cues and their expressions. And if you say something and they smile, that's valuable data. Like, you couldn't see that. If I shut off my camera, I could be making I could be frowning and you wouldn't know. Like, yeah, that's great. That tone without the visual information could be taken negatively or positively. So virtual, especially with video, I think is by and large similarly valuable, except way more accessible. I'm communicating with people from all over the world. I can't do that face to face. I'm not a billionaire who can fly everywhere in the world, especially with Corona. So I'd say virtual is probably the highest leverage version, but especially if you do it with video.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We are almost at the end of our session today. So if none of us have any question, then we'll move on towards the ending of today's session. Tim, I'd like to say that the thing I appreciate, or what to say, the quote that you said, that people never grow up; they learn how to react in various situations. I really like that. I really like that quote.
I love it.
Uh, so. So summing up today's session regarding our team building and networking, I'd like to sum up saying that we should not have the attitude of saying that I'm the boss in any team building session. A team leader should always be the facilitator of the group. Team leader should be friendly and be interactive in the group, not being autocratic or not being the bossy one, as I have said. If there is any conflict in the team, it should be noted and confronted professionally as soon as possible. The conflict should never be ignored, as like Tim said, that the basketball example he gave, I exactly forgot it.
Yeah, a hole the size of a basketball in your chest. It's a little too late to now address something. Yeah.
So we need to address the problems as soon as possible. So we should saying we need to solve the problem. It should never be done in negative way, but it should be done in a positive way. Also, we need to separate the problems and separate the individual from the problem and try to solve the problem. And also, we need to be very, very much conscious about the language we use in dealing with the conflicts. Also, I think I learned that a team member should not only support, but they also should criticize, in the sense that if everyone is always okay with the decisions made by leader, then the team may not function well. And regarding networking, I'd like to say that we should be friendly in very first phase of our networking. Like we should help, but we should not expect anything in return. We can start connecting with people to help each other. And also, like Tim said, we need to when to network. If when to network is the question, then the answer is always. We need to network always. And how to network, regarding how to network, according to him, LinkedIn is the best way for networking. And we also learn various tips regarding how to overcome the fear in how to overcome our fear in networking. And also we learn many other things related to team building and networking, which will be fruitful to us in our daily life, in our personal life, and in professional life too. So with this, we have came to the end of our session today. We are very grateful for insightful sharing with and among us. It was really such a great interactive session. Finally, if you have any closing words and like to share through this virtual mode, I offer you the platform, Tim.
Oh, I'm just going to add one more thing. That was when you were talking about, again, how to know what to talk to people about once you've made that connection. Besides what I said, I guess really what it comes down to is the same thing I teach my language students, and that is ask questions, ask WH questions. If you walk in and you interact, even for a short time, with somebody who's like, who's your favorite? What, when, why are you here? Why, you got to be very careful. Instead, you're better to say something like, what made you come to this event? Because why, if the tone is a little bit off, can sound accusatory. So just ask WH questions, and it's inevitable that you will find data to continue. It's an expansive question. Yes, no is the opposite. So I would say be interested, think about how you can benefit people, and ask WH questions specifically, because they're always giving you, you can't give a one-word answer to why or when or how. That's about it.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for joining us, and it's really wonderful to see you here also. And Tim, I'll be sending you your certificate of mentor on your LinkedIn. Maybe saying, because my computer is hang now, that's why I couldn't able to send you right now. So I'll be sending you that. And okay, yeah, Surya.
Thanks, Sudhir.
Yeah, I was also just going to mention about the certificates that will be provided tomorrow. So once again, thank you, team. Thank you so much, all of the members and participants for the active participation. Hope we all have learned many things regarding the team building and networking. We will be having this type of session continuously. So again, I, on the behalf of this whole Hultprize at Quest International College, to take this opportunity to thank you for accepting our invitation and enlightening us, team. Thank you so much.
Priya, I have one question for you now. You said you're going to have ongoing sessions. When?
Yeah, actually.
And at what link, which you should put in the chat?
No, actually, the sessions are being planned, and it is in the process. So we don't actually we have that in schedule. Actually, I was trying to convey that
to be announced. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for noting out. So thank you, team, for for your very much inspiring words and sharing your experiences. I definitely think that this will help me and all the participants present here in their future as well. Hope you
Sure. Well,
enjoyed it.
thank you for having me. And anybody who participated can reach out to me through you if they like, if they have more specific questions that didn't get answered or they need help with something.
Tim, you can drop your LinkedIn URL here also. So if anyone want to connect you, they can join
I
you.
will. I believe that you already have that information in the information I sent, but just give me a moment and I will put the LinkedIn. I will also do that. Just give me a moment because I thought since you already had it, I wasn't prepared. Otherwise, I normally. Here's a good tip though. Yeah, have your LinkedIn ready when you do these Zoom sessions. I usually do, specifically for this reason. So there is my LinkedIn.
So you guys can connect with Tim. He's a very great guy, and he even mentoring me also for differentiation, and we'll be keeping touch with each other for differentiation also. And it's really a pleasure to see you, Tim, and mentoring all our team member also. So yeah, Tim, it's really wonderful to see you again.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Tim.
Hello, you there?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
he's
still
here.
here.
Can we have the group screenshot, the virtual screenshot for our memory?
It's just us.
Yeah, that's why there won't be any problem.
Everyone, please on your camera.
Please turn on your video.
For the.
Oh, okay, yeah. And go into gallery view. There we go. Let's see. Oh, we do have a gallery view a little bit. Oh, we do have more people. Great.
So, Sudeep, are you taking the screenshot or shall I take it?
No, Shreya, I am from mobile, so that's why.
Yeah, it's okay then. I will take the screenshot. Okay. Everybody smile.
Can we stop now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, team. Thank you, team. Thank you all.
If you have a camera, put on your video when you're networking.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Definitely.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, team.
And now more people come on.
Meeting कति बजे सुरु हुन लाग्यो हो?
We'll be doing immediately. No.
अहिले नै
मिटिङ
गर्ने
यसमा
हो?
गर्ने हो कि कुनमा गर्ने हो?
यसैमा
यसैमा
गर्दिनु
गर्दिम। भने यसैमा
So
गर्दिम।
एकछिन पहिला त्यो रेकर्डिङलाई पहिला स्टप गर्दियो सो अनदर
गर्नु न।
रेकर्डिङ विल